Hello everyone, welcome back. It's now chapter 6 of our Midnight Gang. So we ended the last one by meeting some of the characters on the child's ward. So now we're going to continue where we were, and we ended with Tom being the pink frilly dress boy. So let's have a look at where we've got to. Chapter 6, Up to No Good. Tom had had some humiliating things happen to him at his school over the years. There was a time when his shorts split when he was doing gymnastics. His clay spun off the wheel in pottery class and it hit his art teacher on the face, sending her flying. He bent over to pick up a book from the floor in the library and blew off loudly. He trumped. He left the toilet cubicle with a toilet roll trailing from the back of his trousers. And he was in the school cafeteria and he slipped on some gravy and landed head first in a blancmange. That's the type of pudding. Oh my goodness. And it keeps going. He was holding his violin the wrong way around in music class, wondering why it wasn't making a sound until he realised the strings were facing down. Some of the older boys hid his games kit, so he had to play rugby in his pants. He had to put on a tight-fitting all-in-one bodysuit with the tail stuck to his bottom. He was meant to be a cat, and he had to sing and dance for the production of the musical Cats. He thought it might be a trick question when his maths teacher asked him what 2 add 2 was. So he answered 5. You can't catch me out, he says. Oh dear. And chalk dust set off a sneezing fit and he sneezed right in the headmaster's face, covering Mr. Hughes in snot. Ew. But now, here he was, standing in the middle of a hospital ward wearing a pink frilly nightdress. It fits you perfectly, laughed Matron. Once again, it was only her that was laughing. Then she checked her watch, which was pointed to her uniform. Which was pinned to her uniform. 1 minute past 8. Way past all your bedtimes. Right, children, lights out. Matron began to march in the direction of her office at the end of the ward, as if they were all playing Grandma's footsteps. She suddenly turned round after a few paces to see if any of the children had moved. Then she did it again and again. Matron gave one last swiveled eye look at the children before switching off the light. Click. The ward descended into darkness. Tom hated the dark. He was relieved that some light came from the giant clock face of the Houses of Parliament. Not far away from the hospital, across the rooftops of London, people called the clock tower Big Ben after the huge bell inside it that chimed every hour. Bong! The light from the clock face glowed eerily through the tall windows. There was also a small desk lamp in Matron's office. The lady sat there behind the glass, staring out into the gloom. She was scanning the beds in the children's wards for any sign of movement. Silence. Then out of that silence, Tom heard a sound. It was the sound of a tin opening. Then followed the sound of paper rustling. But not just any paper, it sounded like a crinkly silver paper that sweets are wrapped in. Then Tom heard the sound of munching. Tom hadn't eaten since lunchtime, and he'd barely eaten his lunch, as school dinners were so disgusting, not like at Tea-Lap, they're delicious, aren't they? Today, it had been liver and boiled beetroot, followed by stewed rhubarb. Laying there on his hospital bed, Tom could feel his tummy rumbling. When he heard another sweet being unwrapped, and another, he couldn't help calling out softly in the dark, "Please, can I have came a voice back. Tom was pretty sure it was coming from George's bed. "Please," whispered Tom. "I haven't eaten in ages." "Shh," came another voice. "Any louder and you'll get us all into trouble." "I only want one," said Tom. The boy must have spoken too loudly, as at that moment, click, the lights in the children's ward flicked back on, blinking at the brightness. Tom could make out Matron rushing out of her office. "There is no talking after lights out," she shouted. "Now, who was talking?" All the children remained silent. "You must tell me now who was talking, or you will all be in deep, deep trouble." She scanned the ward for signs of anyone cracking under pressure. She looked to George, who looked guilty. "Was it you, George?" she demanded. George shook his head. "Speak up, boy!" Even from across the room, Tom could tell George's mouth was full. George tried to speak, but because of the large quantity of chocolates in his mouth, he couldn't form his words. He murmured. "What have you got in your mouth?" George shook his head to say nothing, but it came out as Matron approached his bed like a crocodile stalking its prey. "George, you're meant to be on a strict diet after your operation, but you are scoffing chocolates again, aren't you?" George shook his head. The lady whipped back his bedsheets to reveal a large tin of chocolates. The tin was huge. It was the kind that your family might receive at Christmas and would last until next Christmas. "You greedy pig," said Matron. "These are confiscated." And with that, she snatched the tin from his hands and whipped a tissue from a nearby box. "Now spit it out, everything that you've got in your mouth." Reluctantly, the boy did so. "Who sent you these?" she demanded. "I know it couldn't have been your father. I'm pretty sure they are not allowed chocolates in prison." Tom could tell George was angry, but the boy was doing his best to keep it in. "They came from a local news agent," replied George. "I'm his favourite customer." "I bet you are. Look at the size of you." "You see, he knows me and I love chocolates the most." "What is this stupid man's name?" "Raj," replied George. "Raj what?" "Raj the newsagent." "I mean, what's his surname, you foolish child?" "I dunno." "Well, I will try to trace him and with any luck have his shop closed down. After your operation you are forbidden from eating chocolates, George." "Sorry, Matron." "Sorry isn't good enough. The hospital principal, Sir Quentin Strillers, will have to be told about you defying doctor's orders like this, George." "Yes, Matron," answered the boy sorrowfully. "I will deal with you in the morning. Now go to sleep, all of you." Matron stalked back towards her office. Once again, like Grandma's footsteps, she turned around several times to check the children were as still as statues. Click. The lights went off again and Matron sat in her office. After a moment, the lady did the most incredible thing. She opened the tin and started scoffing the chocolates herself. Matron seemed to like the big purple wrapped ones the best, as she made her way through them at quite a pace. She had barely popped one in her mouth before the next one was already in, being unwrapped, ready for scoffing. Time passed, and the more she ate, the sleepier she became. By 9 o'clock, her eyelids were flickering. She ate and ate and ate. Perhaps she hoped the sugar in the chocolates would keep her awake. Strangely, they seemed to be having the opposite effect. By 10 p.m, her eyes were closing for a few seconds at a time. Still, she ate and ate and ate. By 11 p.m, she was desperately trying to prop up her head in her hands, but it was becoming heavier and heavier and heavier. The scoffing slowed down too, and soon the chocolate mush dribbled out of her mouth, and her head hit the desk with a loud thud. Through the glass, Matron could be heard snoring. The children on the ward all remained silent for a moment. Then out of the darkness someone whispered, "Well done, George. I think the plan's working," he whispered back. George's Cockney accent made his voice stand out. "What plan?" "Shh," came another voice. "Go to sleep, new boy. Stop poking your nose into other people's business," said the girl. "Now let's all get ready to go at midnight." But of course, Tom couldn't sleep, especially now he knew that the children were up to no good. What was going to happen at midnight? And that is the end of chapter 6. Chapter 7, The Midnight Hour. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. It's getting very exciting now. Goodbye, everyone.